Hey, this is Aaron Letrick from Letrick Olson, and you are listening to the Brutally Delicious Podcast.
One, two, three, four. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast.
Today.
I am well. There's the camera. There we go.
Yeah. Good to see you.
You too.
Thanks for taking the time. Hopefully they'll calm down here in a second. Somebody just walked up on the porch. Well, you're in Detroit, right?
Yes, sir.
A whole bunch of you guys are?
Yeah, we're all Detroit boys.
That's nice.
I think that's why they call us the Detroit Supergroup.
Yeah.
They're the Detroit Supergroup. I'm the guy standing in front of the Detroit Supergroup.
How did the whole thing come about? I mean, how did the Letrick Olson and specifically Willow come about?
Okay, so let's start with Letrick Olson. Kenny and I have been friends forever. And we wanted to do stuff together back in the day. And this is right when Kid Rock was starting to percolate, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he and Jimmy were obviously founding members of the Twisted Brown Trucker Band. So that took off, and that just squashed any chance of Kenny and I doing anything together.
Right.
And then I moved to New York. I lived there for 10 years. So we're talking about the 90s at this point, right. Early 90s. So I moved off to Detroit or to New York. I lived there for 10 years. Came back because this was my roots. This was my home. This is where my family is.
Right.
And Kenny had left Kid Rock in the meantime. Of course, we saw each other many times over the years. He'd come through New York and we'd hang out.
Nothing musical, though?
No, we never worked together. He was too busy with Kid Rock, but I worked at the original scores for 10 years. With Howard Stern, of Howard Stern fame.
Really?
Yeah. So Kenny and the boys would come through and we'd catch up and have a good time. That's a whole different interview right there.
Right. I imagine so.
But so I moved back to Detroit, and Kenny in the meantime had left Kid Rock, and he was in between, living in Nashville and working in LA. And suddenly he was back in Michigan, back in Detroit. And we're like, let's do it. So we did our version of Thank You by Led Zeppelin, which has been out since 2020. COVID hit. But Jason played on that. Kevin played on that. Jimmy did not play on that. Our producer, Kevin, did. Kevin Sharp, fantastic keyboard player in his own right.
Okay.
So Kenny decided we're going to start writing music. We're going to start putting things together. And then Willow got killed in a car accident. Willow was my girl.
Right.
And so she got killed in a car accident. And as the story goes, I couldn't make it make sense. I found myself just devastated. I couldn't make it work in my head. I found out through a text message. Somebody sent me a link to an article that had been written that morning shortly after the accident.
You're kidding me. That's how you found out?
That's how I found out, because her family I hadn't met her family yet. And her friends were scrambling around. And, I sent her a text that night at 3 a.m. Are you home safe? And she didn't answer, and I figured she was already sleeping. So I found out through somebody sending me a newspaper article that morning. Horrible, just horrible. So I found myself sitting at the piano, playing the same chord progression over and over again, just because that's my piece over there. I sit in front of that thing and just kind of think, and that chord progression turned out to be the chorus for the song, and the song basically wrote itself. So I wrote this for me. I never had any intentions of putting it out. It was just something that helped me deal with it. It was my therapy. It was my salvation. I got the words out. I got my feelings out. I got, you know what I mean? I said out loud all the things I was going to miss, the way she looked at me and all those other things. And I played it for Jimmy. And he was kind of speechless. And he said, "Oh my God, you have to put this out." And he says, "I hope that I can do it justice." So when somebody like Jimmy Bones says that, right. I knew I had something.
How difficult was it to not only write it, but to share that story with the world? Or once you realized it was going to take on more of a life of its own than, your own personal song?
Yeah. I went round and round on the sharing part because there was times where I felt like, are people going to think I'm trying to exploit her? And so that's when I started to get close with her family. And I sat down and we got together and they listened to the song and they got behind it. They loved it. Friends of theirs told me that they were listening to it over and over again. This is still the early mixes of it. You know what I mean? So I thought, well, if it can help them and it's helping me and we can share her with the world and maybe help people in the world, then what's the downside to this?
Right.
And that's where we stand now. We, and I say we, the boys in the band and her family, we've decided that we're going to celebrate her. And recently in an interview, he said to me, you know, when I heard the song, he said, I was thinking about how my wife and I have been having problems. And he said, I heard the song and I played it for her. He said, you know, babe, whatever problems we're having, it's not that bad.
Wow.
So it affects everybody differently.
That's like goosebump stuff right there, right?
Right. And so, you know, while I still listen to this song 2 or 3 times a day,
right,
just because of what it does for me, it makes me feel better. And I was actually talking to her mom this morning, and she was the same way. She said, I know how it makes me feel. I know how it makes you feel. And she said, the idea that it's helping people in different ways, then why not?
Did you ever feel too vulnerable? Because there's definitely a certain amount of vulnerability there too as well, right?
Yeah, but I don't have an insecurity like that. I have an acting background, and I spent a lot of time in acting classes learning how to not crush my emotions. You know what I mean? So I'm that guy that will watch a movie and I'll tear up, I'll cry because that movie is so strong and so impactful. And I know what those actors went through to get there. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, I went through one of the most devastating experiences a human being can go through.
Right.
And I have no problem putting it out there. You know?
So when you brought this to the guys, was there any concern that it wouldn't be, or justice wouldn't be done to what was in your head and in your heart?
No. And I lost that fear as soon as Jimmy said what he said.
Right.
When Jimmy said, this is beautiful and I hope I can do it justice, I was like, uh-oh, we got something here.
Right.
And then, you know, when Jason plays the drums, he's not just playing the drums, he's playing emotions, he's playing parts, he's playing the groove. He's got that feel, and you know, each note that he hits, it means something to him. You know what I mean? Right. And that's that Jeff Porcaro background of his. And when Kenny played on it, well, you've heard the final results. Yeah. Kenny, it was like an out-of-body experience.
Right.
I love to tell the story that we were sitting in the studio was very dark, and our engineer Silvio was sitting at the computer. And I was sitting in the room and I was singing cue vocals to Kenny, which was difficult because it was still really new to me at the time. You know what I mean? He just started playing. And like with Kenny, you just tell him what the key is. He doesn't come in with preconceived notions. He doesn't really write parts. Kenny plays by feel. He plays from the heart. He sings through those fingertips.
So on the fly? On
the fly, he started doing it.
Wow.
And he only needs a few passes to get his groove, you know what I mean? And it's the same thing when he plays live, you know what I mean? He feels it. So it just started turning into this thing where I'm trying to sing cue vocals and Kenny started playing. And Silvio's staring into the computer. So he's facing off this way. I'm facing this way and Kenny's here. And I'm trying not to look at him because I don't, you know, and he's doing his thing. And he started playing, you know, you've heard the swells, you've heard the notes, you've heard the licks that he does. And Silvio goes like this and looks at me, and I'm looking back at him, and we're both
magical.
Tears, mouths open, and it's like Kenny had an out-of-body experience.
Right.
And he will tell you that, you know, he had never met Willow. He had not met her, but he feels like he knows her now through that recording process.
Wow.
Yeah, really, really incredible. So the answer to your question is I had no doubt this thing was going to come across.
So that's like sort of an otherworldly experience, right? A connection.
Really, yeah, really amazing. I mean, Kenny and I are brothers and we understand each other, you know what I mean? And we have, you know, we're those guys that have those inside jokes all day long. And, you know, we could finish each other's sentences, and and he's like that with a lot of people. I mean, Kenny's an extraordinary human being. So when I write something or he writes something or we start playing, we start vibing, we know what's going to happen. We know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen, but we know something sensational is going to happen.
Right. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Are you planning on, are there more songs in the works?
There are actually. We got 3 in the oven right now. So when we finished writing this one, Dan Colucci, who is our friend and manager at this point, he says, "No more bets." And I was like, "Dan, I write what I write, bro. I write what I write." Willow was an extraordinary situation, but the next one I wrote was also I'm a crooner. I sit at the piano and I play beautiful chords. I sing beautiful melodies. That's my thing,
Right.
It's up to Kenny to write the rock song. So we've got 2 rockers and another ballad coming out.
What about taking this on the road? Is that a thing, or is that because everybody's in their own projects, not really a thing?
I mean, that's the issue. I guess this is Ted's last tour. He's calling it the
I've seen, yeah.
But you know how that goes. Ted, he can't sit still for more than 5 minutes.
I mean, Kiss has been on their last tour for 25 years, so.
Right. And with Kid Rock, I mean, he does weekend shots now,
Right.
They're about to take off next week. So yeah, that's the problem, is getting everybody together. What we're trying to do now is some one-offs, a festival here, a festival there, that kind of stuff.
And I imagine with the quality of players you have, it's not really a matter of rehearsing to get ready for that kind of stuff, right? Everybody can just pick up and go.
Yeah, not much. There's not much to it. And, I'm the one who needs the most rehearsal because, I need to know where I'm coming in. I need to rehearse. But these guys get together and it's bam, 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 bam.
Right in the pocket.
Jason comes in so prepared, it's scary sometimes. I mean, he does all these different gigs. Like he'll shoot off and he'll do a weekend with Sponge, and he'll jump off and he'll do something with Ted, and he'll do something over here with somebody else, and Eric Martin from Mr. Big, and Jason shows up perfectly prepared.
Even with all that stuff going on, different projects.
It's awesome to watch him play and to be a part of it. I told the other story is that sometimes I wrote this down after one of our shows, and I said, imagine you're at a show and you are watching your favorite musicians play and you're just in awe. And then you realize, oh, damn, I'm the singer.
Time for me to start.
That's the way I get with these guys. You know what I mean? Because they just start going, and the songs, it's kind of got that. I don't want to compare us to the Allman Brothers or to anybody like that. But, a 3-minute song turns into an 11-minute song because the boys just start vibing.
Right.
And off it goes. We do a version of Hey Joe. And it's suddenly this combination of the Hendrix version and the Seal version, it's kind of orchestrated,
right.
and Jason's playing more of a shuffle than a straight groove. And it's just fun to be part of. It's a great thing.
So where does the genesis or the kernel of the songs come from? Is it pretty much starting with you, like the first 3 songs that you said, or the next 3 songs that you have lined up, and then going forward, is it you on the piano and then you turn it over to the rest of the guys, or?
Yeah, because I'm not a good piano player at all. I can play what I write, and I play basic chords, but they're not really basic chords. I find real interesting stuff,
Right.
And then I turn it over to the boys, and they turn it into this. Yeah. I mean, Jimmy, he just hears it and off he goes. And then, Kenny does his thing. Speak of the devil, there he is. Hey,
I imagine you're not getting into the studio together either, right? So it's mostly bouncing stuff back and forth.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're doing right. Hey, Kenny, I'm on an interview right now.
Oh, all rock on.
Hey, Kenny.
Hey. How's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Just
Good.
Weather and up in northern Michigan right now.
Oh yeah, I'm in Richmond, Virginia. It's 88 degrees and steamy here.
Oh wow. Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, are you on your way down? You coming down?
No.
All right, cool. Well, let me call you back after we do this.
All right.
All right, my brother. Love you. All right.
I won't keep it too long.
All right, ciao, brother.
No, you're good. Where were we? What were we?
Oh
yeah.
Oh, the writing, the genesis.
Oh yeah, the genesis. So I imagine you don't get into a studio then, right? You're just bouncing ideas back and forth via email or whatever.
We get as much as we can. We get together. Bones came over here to my house and we recorded here, the two of us. And then I was there with Kenny. But Kevin lives up in Escanaba, Michigan, which is up in the Upper Peninsula.
Oh, okay.
So it's fortunate that we can, do things remotely and have them turn out the way they did. I mean, imagine, that song is as well structured and as beautifully played as it is. The bass player was in Escanaba, and
right. I mean, technology is crazy how you can do things now.
It's really insane. I can't even imagine what we would come with if we got the five of us in the same room at the same time.
So I talk about this a lot on the show, or me and my partner do. I think there's something to be said for the magic that happens, like, when you get certain band members in the room together and you start bouncing stuff off each other. Mm-hmm. But possibly it's not as much of an issue when, you have the caliber of players you have as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're itching to do this, at the very least, we can get Jason, Kenny, Jimmy, and I in the same room together.
Right.
And then we have Matt from Uncle Cracker fills in on bass when we do live stuff.
Right. And then things change, right? Because then they start playing it and go, well, maybe, we'll swing it here, or this comes up, or.
Right. And I'm not really an egomaniac when it comes to my songs and how they're written and stuff. So I welcome the moves that these guys make.
Right.
I mean, if I had made them stick to exactly what I had written, the piano would be kind of boring. We wouldn't heard all the beauty that Kenny has written, and Kevin's bass part. You listen to the bass part in this song, and it drives. I mean, it really drives the song when it needs to be driven, and it's just, it's beautifully done. Every time I think about what they played on this song, it gets that big grin on my face.
That's beautiful. And I know you said, how's the single been received so far? Is it pretty intense? Yeah,
it's doing really, really well. The biggest stat that I love to share is that it's at a mid 80% complete listen rate. So when people listen to the song, almost 90% of the people listening to the song listen to the entire song, and that's 4 minutes and 44 seconds.
And in today's world where everybody's got a 30-second attention span, that's pretty amazing, right?
Fast forward. Yeah, that's huge to me. And I never even thought there was such a stat that I could, you know what I mean? But Theo, who runs the record label that we're on, said, Aaron, he said, this is an unbelievable stat. You know
that's
what I mean?
Great.
In the 80s, that's just crazy. So I'm excited about that. We put out a lyric video a week and a half ago. It's well over 12,000 views, just a lyric video.
And are you getting a lot of fan feedback and a lot of emails, telling you how it touched their lives? Or
yeah, that's one of the coolest things. And like I said, I was talking to Willow's mom this morning. Her name's Denise. She's so wonderful, that whole family. And I was telling her how the reaction from people and what they're getting from the song has been really moving. And it's not, like I said to you earlier, it's not just people who have lost somebody. It's people who have had a breakup or have had a rough relationship. And they're like, wait a minute, we're fighting about leaving socks on the floor. This guy's died.
Right.
Let's put things in perspective.
And then circling back to what you said, where you wrote it for yourself, that's got to be amazing, right? I mean, because you weren't really thinking about the people that are having trouble in their relationships or any of that stuff. You were just writing what was on your heart, and that's the power of music, though, right?
It really is. I mean, the reason I got into music, I come from a musical family. Mom sings like Barbra Streisand, and my grandfather was a drummer back in the big band days, and I remember sitting on the floor in the living room at his house. He lived out in California, and I didn't get to see him often, but we were sitting there and he was listening to Memory from Cats by Barbra Streisand. Mm-hmm. She hits that low G and what was it? Something Streetlights. I should write this down because I need to remember what it was. She hits that low note and he got a tear in his eye. And I was like, oh my God, I need to be involved in something that can move people like this.
Right.
And here I am X amount of years later, and it's happening. Pretty incredible.
Wild. Yeah, I guess that's the great big payoff in the end.
Pretty incredible. So I no longer feel guilty. I don't know if it's the right word, but about being excited about the song. I wish I'd never had written it. I wish I'd never written it. And I would trade everything, you know what I mean, to switch it all back. But I have to be excited about the fact that people are engaged in hearing about her, and that people are moved by her story, and that I can just celebrate her, you know?
And so obviously I don't know Willow, but I imagine, you know, just by listening to the song a few times preparing this, that, you know, she's looking down and is quite proud of it as well, right?
Or she's going to strike me with lightning eventually. She wasn't, I don't know if this would have been her world, you know. She was stunning, but she wasn't crazy outgoing. She was more reserved.
Right.
And I mean, she'd go out with her girls and have fun and all that other stuff. But I think this kind of attention, plus the fact that, you know, her parents and I are real close right now, like we never got a chance for her to introduce her parents to me.
Right.
So, you know, there was quite an age gap between the two of us, and didn't bother me, didn't bother her at this point. It certainly doesn't bother her parents, you know.
Right.
But I think she's looking out for me. I asked her to in the song, you know.
Right.
Well, I said, I'm better with you in my life. Will you watch over me? And there's been moments, you know, where I felt it. We carry her around. So Blue Butterfly, you've seen the artwork. There's a butterfly wing here. The blue butterfly is, her best friend said, the blue butterfly, that's, when we see blue butterflies, we know that's Willow around us. And the rose, her middle name was Rose. She was Willow Rose. So the red rose signifies, you know, her name, and the willow branch.
So fans want to find Letrick Olson. Is it
LettrickOlson.com?
LettrickOlson.com. And what do you have next? I know you said you got those 3 singles, or can you give us any dates or anything, or is it just?
It's tough. Like Kenny just said, he said he's not coming down today. Weather must be bad up north. So the plan was, Kenny's building this incredible studio multimedia center right down the street from here. I live in Beverly Hills, Michigan.
Okay.
And right down the street, they're building this multimedia center to where you can have everything from a recording studio to podcast to video shooting to live performances. So
nice.
He was coming down to work on that and, you know, finish up some songs that we were working on. So it gets bump back. We're in no hurry.
Right.
You know,
are you working on solo stuff as well, or?
I'm focusing the stuff that I'm writing now. I want to do with this project.
Gotcha.
If I was going solo anyhow, these would be the guys I would use to play on it.
Right.
So let's keep it Letrick Olson, and everybody shares in the spoils if there are any. And, you know, I love playing with these guys. I love writing with these guys. I love recording with these guys.
That's great. And at the end of the day, you know, you're touching people along the way, which I think is pretty amazing as well. So
yeah.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you taking the time.
Cheers, brothers. Great to meet you.
Good luck with the record. Have a good night.
Thanks. Take care.
All right. Bye.